Lila felt a chill as she drove into Black Hollow. The fog was so thick it seemed to swallow the car, making the headlights barely cut through the dense mist. She had heard stories about this place, tales of eerie happenings and unexplained disappearances, but she had always dismissed them as mere folklore. Now, as she navigated the winding road, she couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The trees loomed tall and menacing, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out to grasp her car. The deeper she drove, the more isolated she felt, as if the world outside had ceased to exist. The town was shrouded in mist. It clung to the buildings and streets, giving everything an ethereal, ghostly appearance. The few people she saw moved like shadows, their faces obscured by the fog. Lila couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching her, their eyes following her every move. She passed by old dilapidated shops and houses, their windows dark and empty, like hollow eyes staring into her soul. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of a sign or the distant call of a crow. It was as if the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Shadows stretched long and hungry. They seemed to move of their own accord, shifting and twisting in the mist. Lila's heart raced as she imagined unseen creatures lurking just out of sight, waiting to pounce. The air was thick with tension, and every step she took felt like a step deeper into a nightmare. She quickened her pace, eager to reach the safety of her new home, but the shadows seemed to follow her, growing darker and more menacing with each passing moment. Her new home, a rambling Victorian house, loomed before her. It was a grand, imposing structure with tall, narrow windows and intricate woodwork. The fog wrapped around it like a shroud, adding to its eerie presence. Lila had always dreamed of living in a house like this, but now, standing before it, she felt a pang of doubt. The house seemed to exude a sense of melancholy, as if it held countless secrets within its walls. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, determined to make the best of her new life. It was imposing, with dark windows that seemed to watch her. Each window felt like a pair of eyes, following her every move. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being observed, not just by the house but by something within it. The wind howled through the trees and the branches scratched against the windows, creating an eerie symphony that sent shivers down her spine. She fumbled with the keys, her hands trembling, and finally managed to unlock the door. Inside, dust lay heavy, whispering forgotten stories. The air was stale, filled with the scent of old wood and decay. Cobwebs hung in the corners and the floorboards creaked under her weight. Lila felt like she had stepped back in time, into a world that had been forgotten by the outside. She wandered through the rooms, each one filled with antique furniture and faded photographs. It was clear that the house had once been grand, but now it was a shadow of its former self, a relic of a bygone era. In the attic, tucked away in a dusty trunk, she found a curious sketchbook. The attic was a treasure trove of forgotten items, each one telling a story of the past. Lila carefully opened the trunk, her curiosity piqued. The sketchbook was old, its leather cover worn and cracked. She could feel the history in her hands, the weight of the years that had passed since it was last opened. She sat down on the floor, the dust swirling around her, and began to flip through the pages. Its leather cover was cold to the touch. The pages were yellowed with age, and the drawings inside were intricate and detailed. Each one seemed to tell a story, a glimpse into the mind of the artist. Lila was captivated, unable to tear her eyes away from the images. They were beautiful, yet unsettling, filled with dark, twisted figures and haunting landscapes. She could feel the emotions of the artist, the pain and fear that had been poured into each stroke of the pen. The drawings inside were vivid, disturbing. They seemed to come alive on the page, writhing and shifting as if they had a life of their own. Lila's heart pounded in her chest as she turned each page, the images growing more and more unsettling. She could feel a presence in the room with her, a cold, malevolent force that seemed to be watching her every move. She shivered, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps. Each one seemed to writhe with a life of its own. Lila shivered. She could feel the weight of the house pressing down on her, the walls closing in. The air was thick with tension, and she felt like she was being suffocated by the darkness. She closed the sketchbook, her hands trembling, and placed it back in the trunk. She needed to get out of the attic, to escape the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to be closing in around her. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind, seemed to carry a sinister undertone. She hurried down the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest. The house felt alive, as if it was aware of her presence and was watching her every move. She reached the bottom of the stairs and paused, trying to catch her breath. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, and she couldn't shake the sense of dread that had settled over her. Something unseen lurked in the shadows of the house. She could feel its presence, a cold, malevolent force that seemed to be watching her every move. The shadows seemed to shift and move, as if they were alive. Lila's heart raced as she tried to make sense of what was happening. She had always been a rational person, but now, in the darkness of the house, she couldn't help but feel a sense of fear and unease. She needed to find a way to make the house feel like home, to banish the darkness that seemed to be closing in around her. The air felt heavy, electric. It was as if the house itself was charged with a dark energy, a force that seemed to pulse through the walls and floorboards. Lila could feel it in her bones, a tingling sensation that made her skin crawl. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but the feeling of unease only grew stronger. She needed to find a way to make the house feel like home, to banish the darkness that seemed to be closing in around her. A sense of dread settled over her, cold and suffocating. It wrapped around her like a shroud, making it hard to breathe. She felt trapped, as if the house was closing in on her, its walls pressing down on her. She needed to find a way to escape, to break free from the darkness that seemed to be consuming her. But as she looked around, she realized that there was no escape. The house was alive, and it had claimed her as its own, something hungry. The sketchbook belonged to Evan, a boy who had lived in the house a century ago. Lila discovered his diary hidden beneath the floorboards. It spoke of a creature, the Wraithmaker, who fed on fear and despair. Evan had unwittingly summoned it, bound by a pact gone wrong. The Wraithmaker, Evan wrote, craved freedom. It whispered to him through the sketchbook, promising power in exchange for release. Evan, seduced by its promises, began drawing the creatures that would become its army. He quickly realized his mistake, but it was too late. Lila realized the sketchbook wasn't just a window. It was a weapon that could change the fate of Black Hollow forever. The eerie drawings within its pages seemed to come alive under her touch, whispering secrets of a time long forgotten. Each stroke of the pencil, each shadowy figure held a piece of the puzzle she needed to solve. The more she delved into the sketchbook, the more she understood its significance. It was as if the book was guiding her, showing her the way to confront the darkness that had enveloped the town, a way to control the Wraithmaker. The ancient book with its glowing symbols was more than just a relic. It was a key to unlocking the power that could either save or doom them all. The symbols glowed with an otherworldly light, pulsating with energy that seemed to resonate with the very core of her being. She could feel the power coursing through her veins, urging her to take action. Evan's diary, she discovered, wasn't just a chronicle of his descent into madness. It was a guidebook, a detailed account of his encounters with the Wraithmaker, filled with notes and sketches that mapped out his every move. The diary was a treasure trove of information, revealing the secrets of the Wraithmaker's origins and its weaknesses. Evan had meticulously documented his findings, hoping that someone would one day find his diary and use it to put an end to the curse, a way to break the curse. Hidden within the pages of the diary were secret instructions, written in a code that only someone with a keen eye could decipher. Lila spent countless hours poring over the diary, trying to make sense of the cryptic messages. She knew that the key to breaking the curse lay within those pages, and she was determined to uncover it. But the instructions were cryptic, written in a language that felt both familiar and utterly alien. Time was running out. The more she tried to decipher the code, the more elusive it became. It was as if the diary was testing her, challenging her to prove her worth. She could feel the weight of the town's fate resting on her shoulders, and the pressure was almost too much to bear. The Wraithmaker grew stronger with every passing day. Its presence was palpable, a dark shadow that loomed over the town, feeding off the fear and despair of its inhabitants. Lila could sense its power growing, and she knew that she had to act quickly before it was too late. Its power pulsed through Black Hollow, twisting the town into a reflection of Evan's nightmares. The once peaceful town had become a place of terror, with nightmarish creatures lurking in the shadows and the very air thick with malevolence. The Wraithmaker's influence was everywhere, warping reality and turning the town into a living nightmare. Lila was drawn deeper into the mystery. The more she uncovered, the more questions arose. She felt a strange connection to the Wraithmaker, as if their fates were intertwined. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was meant to be the one to end its reign of terror. She was determined to set the town free even if it meant facing her own fears. Lila knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger, but she was ready to confront whatever challenges lay in her way. With the sketchbook and Evan's diary as her guides, she steeled herself for the battle to come. The fate of Black Hollow rested in her hands, and she was prepared to do whatever it took to save it. Lila deciphered Evan's instructions. The key to defeating the Wraithmaker lay in the Shadow Realm, a place born of nightmares. To enter, she needed to draw the Wraithmaker's true form. The sketchbook pulsed with a dark energy. The air crackled. The drawing took shape, twisting and writhing on the page. Fear threatened to consume her as she stared into the abyss of its eyes, but she pushed it down, steeling her resolve. With a deep breath, she stepped into the drawing. The world around her dissolved into darkness. The Shadow Realm was a twisted reflection of Black Hollow, consumed by darkness and despair. The air was thick with an oppressive gloom, and the once familiar streets were now alien and foreboding. Every corner seemed to whisper secrets of lost souls and forgotten dreams. The Wraithmaker loomed before her, a monstrous entity of shadow and bone. Its presence was overwhelming, a dark force that seemed to draw the very light from the air. The creature's eyes glowed with a malevolent intelligence, and its skeletal form twisted and writhed as if it were made of living darkness. Its power was palpable, suffocating. The air around it seemed to vibrate with a dark energy, making it hard to breathe. Lila could feel the weight of its presence pressing down on her, threatening to crush her spirit. But she stood her ground, determined to face the darkness head-on. Evan's spirit, trapped within the realm, appeared beside her, a flicker of light in the oppressive darkness. His presence was a small comfort, a reminder that she was not entirely alone in this forsaken place. His eyes, though filled with sorrow, held a glimmer of hope. He explained that the Wraithmaker could only be destroyed by its own power. The creature's strength was also its greatest weakness. If she could find a way to turn its dark energy against it, she might stand a chance. It was a daunting task, but Lila knew she had no other choice. She had to turn its fear against it. The Wraithmaker, for all its power, was not invincible. It thrived on the fear of others, but it could also be made to fear. Lila had to find a way to exploit this, to make the creature see her not as prey, but as a threat. It was a desperate gamble. The odds were stacked against her and the margin for error was razor thin. One wrong move, one moment of hesitation, and she would be lost to the shadows forever. But Lila had faced impossible odds before, and she had always found a way to persevere. One wrong move meant becoming another prisoner of the Shadow Realm. But Lila was determined. She had come too far, endured too much to let fear dictate her actions now. Every step she took was a step towards reclaiming her world, towards breaking the chains that bound her and Evan. She had come too far to give up now. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but Lila's resolve was unshakable. She would face the Wraithmaker, harness its power, and bring an end to the darkness that had consumed Black Hollow. Failure was not an option. She would fight, and she would prevail. Lila confronted the Wraithmaker. She used her fear, not as a weapon but as a mirror. She reflected its own darkness back at it, amplifying its own terror. The Wraithmaker shrieked, the sound echoing through the Shadow Realm. It thrashed, its form flickering. The shadows around them writhed in agony. With a final, ear-splitting roar, the Wraithmaker imploded, consumed by its own fear. Light flooded the Shadow Realm, banishing the darkness. Black Hollow returned to normal. The creatures vanished, the mist receded, but victory came at a price. Evan's spirit, finally free, moved on. He could not stay. Lila left Black Hollow, forever changed by her experience. She left the sketchbook behind, hidden away in the attic, a reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. A warning. The town remained quiet, peaceful, but the echoes of the Wraithmaker's curse lingered. The shadows seemed a little deeper, the mist a little thicker. The wind whispered tales of fear in the night. Years later, a new family moved into the old Victorian house. They were oblivious to its history, to the secrets hidden within its walls. One afternoon, exploring the attic, the young son stumbled upon a dusty trunk. He opened it, revealing a curious sketchbook. Its leather cover was cold to the touch. He picked it up, drawn to the intricate drawings. A shiver ran down his spine. He could have sworn he saw one of the figures move. A new chapter was about to begin. The legacy of Black Hollow lived on.